Okay, so we can start now. Let's go. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I am Chloé Cabrol, responsible of the marketing activities at Airbus Protect. I'm very delighted to welcome you to today's webinar. We are going to spend an hour together discussing a crucial and highly pressing topic for our sector, managing Part IS compliance. And to achieve this compliance with relatively new regulatory regulation, FENS, the security risk management software solution developed by Airbus Protect, could help you. I would like to inform you that this session is being recorded, and if you do not have the time to stay until the end of the session, we will send you the recording. Please also note that the presentation you can see on the screen right now will also be sent to you in the coming days. And now, to help unpack this complex topic, I'm delighted to be joined today by two of our leading experts, Samuel Schmidlin, who is the product owner of the FEN solution, and Yanis Delarocque, senior cybersecurity consultant and Part IS expert. Yanis is one of our 3 accredited experts by EASA, and Airbus Protect is one of the 3 accredited entities. Let's take a look at the program of today. First of all, we will start with a brief introduction to remind everyone who we are. Then Samuel will present FENS. After that, Yanis will provide a focus on the Part IS regulation. We will then move to the practical side with a live demonstration of the tool to see exactly how it simplifies your processes. And finally, we will conclude with an open Q&A session where you can ask our experts some questions directly. Before we get to the heart of today's matter, allow me to provide some insight of Airbus Protect. We are now an European leader in aviation security. I'm just taking a look at the chat, sorry. Our strength lies on the expertise of over 1,800 professionals based across Europe, supporting our customers to build resilience across their activities. Our expertise is also reflected in our high standard and certification. As I just said, Airbus Protect is an accredited entity by EASA, but we also hold the benchmark accreditations from national cybersecurity agencies and also contribute to our clients' monitoring program. We already have the trust of major players in the ecosystem. These include airports such as Cologne-Bonn Airport, Marseille-Provence Airport, and Toulouse-Blagnac Airports. Airlines also, such as Scandinavian Airlines, and supply chain manufacturers such as Lizzie. But our expertise extends far beyond this because we cover sectors such as defense, critical infrastructure, and energy also. Each time our experience enables us to know very well the sector we are operating. Now, our day-to-day mission is simple: to provide risk management at every level of your organization to ensure the absolutely continuity of your operation. And to achieve this, Airbus Protect is more than cybersecurity. We also deliver end-to-end resilient service, also to drawing on safety and environmental risk management services. If you want to learn more, don't hesitate to reach me at the end of the session. I can provide you some valuable insight about our portfolio. And now, Samuel, Yanis, the floor is yours.
Samuel, you are muted.
Okay, thank you, Chloe, and thank
It's better now.
guys. So I'm going to hand over and explain you what FENS is about, our tool for risk management and compliance management. So FENS is Airbus Protect software solution for risk assessment, compliance assessment, audit and risk management. It has been first designed by experts, so it was built by and for our risk analysts who use it daily. It's now a highly mature tool because it has been developed and refined for over a decade. It was initially built for Airbus needs and then extended to our partners, and now since 4 years it is fully available as a standard commercial solution for everyone. It's an on-premises solution built for collaboration and has been labelized eBIOS Risk Manager by the ANSI. FENS contain many methodology, contain eBIOS Risk Manager, the classic one. For the international, it contains ISO 27005. We also developed a specific methodology for the industrial system and the railway industry in collaboration with Alstom. And for the topic of today, we are going to see eBIOS Risk Manager combined with an aviation standard that is ED 203. FENS allow to do compliance assessment. We provide in FENS many standards as NIS2, CMCC, and so on by default, but you can also import whatever standards that you will need and also specific security policy. As a risk management tool, you can follow up the remediation plan over the time, see the projection of the risk over the time, and as well having a global consolidation of the risk at an organization level. Regarding the audit part, you can use a reusable questionnaire and collect all the evidence in a centralized location. Here are a brief overview at some of our references that will show you that France is already trusted across the aerospace and transportation sector. And now explaining why eBIOS RM is relevant for Partailles. For that, there are 4 main reasons. First reason, with eBIOS RM, you can build realistic and you can draw realistic threat scenario. Partailles is about aviation safety, and eBIOS RM does not just check boxes, it enables you to build realistic threat scenario and helps you understand exactly how a cyber attack can impact a flight or a ground operation. Second, the ecosystem mapping. So today aviation is fully connected, as you all know, and Partailles forces us to manage the supply chain risk. With eBIOS RM, you can map all your partners like airports, supplier, subcontractors, and so on to stop indirect attack based on mutual exposure. Third, a structure, repeatable, and comparable method. Partailles compliance is a continuous process, as you know, not a one-shot audit. eBIOS RM will offer a clear framework which enable easy repetition of when your system changes, and the results are easy to compare over time. And this is exactly what a regulator looks for. Finally, an end-to-end management, risk management. You will start by identifying your critical assets. You will analyze the threats, and you will finish with a clear action plan to fix the risk. In short, eBIOS RM is the ideal bridge to translate high-level Partailles rules into operational safety solutions.
Thank you for the introduction of Partailles, because it is a very interesting topic that has to be achieved for now regarding the civil aviation ecosystem. I will make you a quick introduction about Partailles for the people who are in civil aviation. Partailles, it's not just another European regulation. It's applied for a critical infrastructure, which is the civil aviation, not only for the aircraft that are flying, but for all the ecosystem, the maintenance, the production, the design, the airport. So we need to have an end-to-end protection of that ecosystem, and the European Commission pushed in 2022 and 2023 Partaias, which is a regulation that will be assessed in a surveillance program by competent authority, but it will be evaluated on the same way it is already performed for the safety. It means that you don't need to tick box of compliance, but to demonstrate maturity. And that's why currently you need to be at the present and suitable level. That means you need to have your written applicable documentation in place that needs to be compliant to the regulation. But in 2027, you need to operate this applicable documentation. And because it embeds the safety risk assessment and the security risk treatment, you need to have your security risk assessment done in 2027. And that's why we are introducing you the EBS method added with ED 203. More than that, with Partaias, it is cyber for safety. The final aim of this regulation is to manage the risk that could have a potential safety impact. It could not be performed only with the ISMS and with the cyber guys. You need to work the silos with the safety guys. And that's why this regulation is very interesting in order to demonstrate the maturity that is required by EASA. Now, because Partaias, okay, we have the first one. In Airbus, we are convinced that we can go deeper on the implementation of the security risk assessment. In order to cover the safety impact, we can use something that are already done for the product security. That means, for example, the certified aircraft, the certified helicopters. In order to develop that concept, Eurocay, which is a grouping of civil aviation manufacturer, creates an Eurocay document, which is a standard that demonstrates means of compliance. And one of these ED is the OD 203A. This document explains how the likelihood is quantified in order to perform a successful attack on a certified product. It means that by using this method, we can have a parallel with the security risk assessment and having an end-to-end security management from the ground to the air. More than that, it demonstrates the resilience. You already know for the people that are from the safety management system, one thing that is important is no single point of failure. Here, for the cyber, it will be no single point of vulnerability. And that's the final philosophy of Partaias, to have this end-to-end protection of the certified product and the operation around that. We also think that it is useful to use the ED203 because it is from the civil aviation ecosystem for the embedded system. But for the operational part, we'll have the continuity and we can talk the same language between the safety and the cyber part. Now, why we can leverage ED203 for Partaias? Because I already said that we have the end-to-end security management, the continuity, and more than that, you can avoid the security bottleneck, which is something that is not scheduled in principle on EBS, but that could be enabled by using EBS plus ED203 for the quantification of the likelihood. But now, because it is just conceptual, I will let Samuel present FENS because we work on the implementation of ED and EBS RM in FENS tool.
Okay, thanks, Yanis. Now we are going to present you this concept into the tool to make it more clear, to make it more practical. And I will go in the live presentation of the tool. So Fence is an on-premises web application, which can also be used in standalone mode for air-gapped environment. And there is many functionality like administration menu to be able to manage the need to know basis with many possibility to for the user and so on, but I will not get in detail of all the possibility. I will just go in the security baseline of part IS, and then we will go in an analysis to see how a part IS analysis, risk analysis can be done. If I go in the security baseline, which is named security control catalogs in Fence, we can see the security control of the requirement of part IS that you already know. And in that case, we have also the possibility to map different standards together. In that case, I could map one of the requirements of part IS, which is Information Security Management System, and I will map it to ISO 27002, that is the policies for information security. So here you can see that this requirement will support the ISO 27002 requirement policy for information security. Just to go in detail, you can see that with the tool, you can make association and relationship between standards. That means that when you have done your compliance with ISO, you will have some controls already, let's say, with indication of implementation status in part IS, for example. Here covers is covered by, and in that case, it is supports. This, by the way, this relationship can be customizable by your organization. Now let's go to the home page of Fence. So here you can see the analysis you have access to. When you start creating an analysis, you create a new assessment in the tool with your name, organization folder. You can choose a methodology, eBiotherm, of course, the one I mentioned. And in that case, we will choose the eBiotherm and ED combined with ED 203, ROK document 203. For the analysis, you can do all the workshop of eBiotherm, but you can do only the compliance assessment as well, which is workshop 1 and 5, or an impact assessment. In Fence, you can also say that this is a model or a template that can be reused in other analyses. What means a template? It means at one point you are doing a snapshot of a risk assessment, and you will say this risk assessment will be my template, will be a generic model that will be reused to gain time with predefined scales, with predefined assets, and so on, to make you gain time, and also to structure all your scales, structure all your assets, and make it once again repeatable. Just to show you, when you start from a template, you can do, I show again, create from templates. And in that case, you can choose to use one specific template that you have defined to start an analysis, as I said, with predefined scale, predefined asset, and so on. Eventually, predefined scenarios, threat scenarios, and so on. Now, we are going in a specific risk analysis. And I will let Yanis explain what kind of risk analysis it is.
Thank you, Samuel. Here for this 2D case, that's purely fictive, but inspired from what we saw in our consultancy services in Airbus Protect. In this case, we will focus on an assisted design and high power calculation process. Concretely, it is a business process that is used in order to produce, to check the quality and to deliver an Ersaform 1 form for aerostructure, for example. The advantage of using this 2D case is that it could be used across approved organization. It could be used for the DOA, the POA, the MOA, and because some supporting asset could be merged between the approved organization, I mean, for example, some airlines, I saw some participants are on airlines. It could be used for the cross-approved organization topics.
Okay, thanks. So I will explain you how this overview is working. So in this overview, you will have the overview of your 5 workshop. In workshop 1, you will see your business assets, supporting assets, the field event that has been assessed, created and assessed, the security baseline. So as you see in this example, everything is not filled for the sake of the demo, but in the real example, you will have everything filled. You have here in workshop 2, the risk origin paired with your target objectives. In workshop 3, the interested parties named interfaces in Partailles and the strategic scenario. In workshop 4, the operational scenario. These scenarios make the threat scenarios required by Partailles. At the end, you have defined current risk and you define a specific action plan with an action plan progress to achieve a residual risk level. As you see here, you have still some risk in serious and critical. The objective of the tool will be to put all the action required to lower the risk and not having a risk in that critical value. Now, let's follow in the tool. So in the tool, you start with the context. It's a chronological view. You will start with the context and you will define what criteria will be impacted by an attack or by a feared event. You will define, for example, the brand. The brand can be impacted at a minor, significant, serious level. Your legal, your operational, and in the case of Partailles, safety and specifically the aviation safety. Here you can, in the tool, define all. Okay, you can define all the scales, like the severity level scales, and for the criteria availability, you can define a loss of availability for 1 week, 1 day, 1 month that will not result in the same impact. Likelihood level scale, same thing, you will define the different level of likelihood. And I will introduce right now something specific to this EuroCAE document that is to quantify the likelihood using reduction point on the preparation means, on the windows of opportunity, and on the execution means. But we will see that later. Finally, in the context definition, you will define your risk acceptance matrix. So here you have one specific risk acceptance matrix for some criteria like branding, legal, operational, health and safety. And you will have a specific risk acceptance matrix for aviation safety. This level will be defined here with the Partailles level that is unacceptable, tolerable if detected, tolerable if monitored, and acceptable. And I will let Yanis for the participant and Rassi.
So as you see on the risk acceptance matrix, you already have in the tool, because of its configuration, even if it is fully customizable, you will have some ways to demonstrate compliance to Partailles, to your competent authority. But to go deeper on that subject, because we will not focus only on the operating, but also on the effective maturity level required in a few years, FENS enables you, for example, with the creation of the RASKI and the participants to the security risk assessment, to add the stakeholders of the risk assessment. Here you have concrete example, the accountable manager, which is a person that are not responsible of the risk management, but that needs to be informed of the threat scenario, the outcome of the risk assessment, and that needs to be accountable of the risk treatment plan. It is required as per OR 210 of Part IAS acceptable means of compliance. More than that, you can also involve maybe your IT service provider. In this study case, you will see that it is important. And this personnel, this type of stakeholders are considered as interface as per the OR 205B of Part IAS. So you see, you can be compliant by automation with fence.
Okay, in the tool you can define in the workshop one many things, but we are focusing today on the most important things. So one of the most important things is defining your business assets. Example, airframe manufacturing process or manufacturing verification process. I will not list everything, and this process will be supported by specific supporting asset. In that case, it will be supported by the computer numerical control machine. In Fence, you have just a windows that will allow you to do the mapping between the business asset and the supporting asset like that to explain the relationship between both. The supporting assets menu is the same thing other way around. You will define your supporting asset like Katia design tool for the design process, safety management tool for the safety management process, and so on and so on. And you will do the mapping. If you want to be quicker still doing the mapping, you can do the mapping with this asset matrix that will allow you to map your supporting assets with your business assets. You can also import and export from Excel. So if you have already a mapping within a Excel spreadsheet, you can easily import it to do the mapping in the tool. Now, the field event.
For the field event, of course, it needs to be synchronized with all the business part of the company, including the safety. That's why here in Fence, you can have a filter on the different impact possible in your organization. And for Part IAS, of course, focus on the safety. But you see that with Fence, you can have other impact. Here for this study case, we will focus on one field event only because we have just 1 hour that will have an impact on the integrity from the security point of view. And you can see that regarding the impact on civil aviation, it is 4.4. It means that, of course, for this study case, the loss of integrity on the airframe manufacturing process could lead to another major safety impact, which is, from the compliance point of view, not acceptable. So this risk needs to be treated, and maybe you will have already some mitigation measures that enable you to decrease the impact. We'll show that on the web presentation.
Okay, and to assess your field event, in that case, a loss of integrity for the business asset airframe manufacturing process, you will here evaluate with the scale that you have defined previously. So this will recall the analyst what is a minor, significant, serious, critical impact on the various criteria, impact criteria, and he will define a critical on the branding and so on, something for the safety. You can put specific comments for each and every criteria and a global justification. And in the tool, you will have your comment for each and every category, each and every criteria. The severity will be the max severity of the different criteria. Now going into the security measure that may be already in place on your system, eventually you will already have a physical access control, a badge access, and we will show you how it is in fence. So in fence, using the ED203 methodology, there is a specific way to quantify the effectiveness of a security measure by giving scoring with reduction point. When we talk about the structure and repeatable method required by Part-IS, this screen is exactly what it looks like. So instead of relying on, let's say, a spreadsheet guesstimation, Fence will use the ED203 to make this process completely objective. As you can see, this measure score against 3 standard criteria, that is preparation means, windows of opportunity, execution means, and in that case, you will have a rationale that will explain that preparation means will be reduced because the most sensitive area are subject to a strict access rule, that the windows of opportunity will be reduced by 4 points because sensitive area are accessible only during predefined period, and it reduces the execution means because the badge technology it's difficult to replicate. Why is this important and why does this matter? Because this measure is now fully reusable. Any analyst can apply it tomorrow to another system and get the exact same reduction point. So that is an example of how Fence guarantees a truly repeatable process. Now, going in the last part of the workshop one in eBioSRM, that is the security baseline. So here you will assess your compliance regarding different standards like ISO 27002 and 2 or Part-IS security for safety. In that case, we will open the assessment. As we say before, it's not completely assessed, it's just for the sake of the demo. And here we see the different control that will be defined: fully compliant, partially compliant, not compliant, or not applicable. You can also map them when you do workshop 1 and 5 with your risk or with the action plan to treat the risk. When you have defined a mapping with ISO 27002, like we did before, you can also do compare related assessment, and you will see the compliance status, the implementation status of control that are mapped with this one, and that will help your compliance assessment. Now we are done with this workshop, and we will follow in a workshop 2, and we will map the risk origin with the target objectives.
Regarding that view, so shown by Samuel, this part is very important because it will enable you to have your risk origin and your target objective regarding you fear, so the feared event. That part needs to be established not only for the safety, but for the overall impact that could be materialized in your organization. And it should be mapped on what we call a security context. Here, for our study case, we will focus on the cyber terrorist, which is someone that wants to attack maybe the manufacturing process, and also that have that is motivated and that have the necessary competencies in order to perform this action. And you will see in the future, when we will talk about the strategic scenario and the operational scenario, that the ED203 will enable you to have an adding method of calculation in order to make this couple ROTO more objective in a repeatable manner, in order to have the repeatability of your security risk assessment. And here, because I saw the question on the chat, of course, fence was not constructed in order to answer to the needs of approved of the organization, but we discovered that is answer to also. It means that you can use fence for the safety related process, for example, in your exposition manual, but it can also answer to the needs of your business process, your legal process, whatever you want that is concerning your organization, but that is important for you to protect.
I switch?
Yes. Here, because you have defined your couple risk origin target objective, it needs to be linked to a shared event regarding the EBIOS method. That's we will focus on the cyber terrorists that will compromise an aircraft part.
Yes, and in the tool, as you can see, the red flag here, the red running, the tool makes you sure that you never forget to link a feared event to your scenario. So here you have defined a feared event that is not linked. The tool, for the sake of consistency, will remind you, tell you, uh, hello, just taking care that this one is not linked. And if it's okay, it's wanted by the analyst, it's okay. Now, following in workshop 3 and in what is called interested parties in eBIOS RM and what is called interfaces in Partailles. Here, there is a way to assess the danger of your interfaces or interested parties by scoring the level of dependency, penetration, maturity of your interested party, and the trust you have in this interested party. This will give a danger level with 3 different colors, as you see. The red being the more critical, and you can flag it as critical. When you will see your map, your digital danger mapping, you can see the different threshold that you put for a danger zone, for a control zone, and for a watch zone. And here you will see that this specific interface production equipment supplier will be critical and has to be addressed, has to be solved. So in the residual screen, you can add a security measure, a mitigation that will mitigate the risk with, for example, in that case, an awareness of the critical personnel. This awareness will result in a better score in maturity, and as a result, at the end, a better note, a better score for the residual danger level. At the end, this critical party is no more in the danger zone. Now, the strategic scenario will help you to draw the specific threat scenario required by Partailles. Here, for example, the example we want to take, the cyber terrorist that is going to compromise an aircraft part, we will see how it will be drawn and how it will operate in a high-level view. Just to say that here we will represent our two interfaces that could result in mutual exposure, the production equipment supplier and the IT service provider.
Here, to have more explanation regarding this study case we retained, so of course we materialize the mutual exposure, but one thing that is important that you see directly is that it is a threat scenario. This threat scenario approach is required by Partailles, and here with this tool you can establish them, but more than that, it could be visualized. It could be very useful if you are implementer in order to explain concretely to your accountable manager what does it mean, how could we be hacked, why do you need to have a budget to manage your risk. With tool, it is visualized. So now 2 threat scenarios were retained. The first one is that we have a compromission of the CNC machine, so the machine that will create and make the quality check of the airframe. And this materialization of the threat scenario is performed via the production equipment suppliers. For the second one, which is more IT related and not especially OT, we can maybe have a compromission regarding the IT service provider that will engage the loss of integrity of the manufacturing verification process, so more POA concerned, and the loss of integrity regarding the quality check could have a compromission not directly on the component, but on the quality of the component. The final aim is that we have a safety impact materialized on the airframe manufacturing process.
Okay. And in the first attack path through the production equipment supplier that will compromise this CNC machine, we will now have a more in detail view. And for that, we will dig into an operational scenario to describe the technical path, the technical attack step to do that.
Here, we will go more deeper on the analysis. If we focus on that one, you see that you have the 4 big steps required by EBS method. So it's not required by PartIS, but here you can add an added value by using that. From the IT perspective, you will, the attacker, so the cyber terrorist, will first of all find a vulnerability on an exposed interface, which is something that could be materialized in an industrial environment because some machines are just obsolete but needed to operate the process. Next, the vulnerability could be exploited. Could be when you have the escalation of privilege, you can have the pivoting in the OT network in order to track and to modify some part design file on the CNC machine. And finally, have the compromission of the aircraft part. But the most important is here you can see that from an end-to-end point of view, we have a malicious and deliberate attack. And it matches exactly with the notion of threat scenario required by PartIS.
Okay, now have a closer look at the target objective and see how ED203 will be used in that part. So when we open that target objective, and for the safety impact, and just before that, I will just show that in the different attack step, you want to put security measure. So for exploit vulnerability, you want to put a security measure. Maybe you have already one with a firewall, but you need another one with a specific authentication to reduce the risk of this attack. At the end, on the target objective, as I said, for the safety part, it will be summarized like that. All the measure that you put are reduction point. So I will explain that in detail. Here we evaluate the likelihood of a successful attack. If we do nothing, if we do not put security measure, we will face the consequences of a full attack. That's why we are countering the attacker's malicious capability with our own resilience. Each reduction point corresponds to the resilience point that we put to counter this attack. And to comply with PartIS, every single measure is strictly independent, segregated, and dissimilar. And here you can see as a result in the security measure we put for the preparation means, for the execution means, finally, the likelihood level is shifting from the score of 26 to 12, 26 being a unacceptable level, and is shifting to 12 that is a tolerable if monitored level.
Now, To conclude on our presentation, as a subsidiary of Airbus, which is a major ecosystem player on civil aviation, we are fully convinced that this approach is the right one, and that's why it is rating in Airbus. For three main reasons. The first one is that it ensures the total continuity from the ground to the air, and it breaks the traditional silos that you can have in aviation cybersecurity or in business cybersecurity. The second argument is that combining the threat scenario with the quantification of the likelihood guarantees a structured methodology that delivers a repeatable and comparable risk assessment, which is expected by the regulation.
And ultimately, as a product owner of Fence and a software editor, our vision with Fence was to bring together the best of both worlds: the framework of eBIOS RM from the IT world and the ED203 from the aircraft world, merging them into a single unified quantification model. That's our last word. Thank you very much for your time, and we are now open to your question.
Thank you very much, Yanis. Thank you very much, Samuel, for the presentation. It was very interesting. I think we have addressed the majority of the question we received. I think only one is still pending from Hamad. Do fans, I think it's more for you, Samuel, do fans have the capability to allow user to map and perform a risk assessment for a particular IT-related hazard that can manifest across the various phases, stages of design management system activity of DOA?
Whoa, that's a big question. Can I see the question eventually?
Yeah, it's from Hamad at 11:17, but I think it's Yanis could help you also.
Yes, of course. Maybe because I saw some questions that are pending. Nelly, for your answer, it is already treated. The answer is yes. You can use Fence for all the possible business impact that you have, and the solution is fully customizable to your needs. And if you have additional questions, don't hesitate to plan maybe an ad hoc with us in order to explain you more what is Fence. Clémence, globally, it is the same answer. Fence could be used for non-ATS services. It could be used for all type of business processes. Ahmad, for the use of Fence for the classification of an event, that's an interesting question. Fence is not designed to perform the external reporting scheme part, so the ERCS reporting, for example. But Fence could be used in order to have the threat scenario and to know if an event that is not classified could have an impact on aviation safety. So it is a part of the answer, but not the end-to-end answer. And I don't know other technical question. Ahmad, the other question, but it is the same answer. Maybe if you have a additional question, don't hesitate on the chat. But for my question, I think I answer. And if I was not clear, don't hesitate to chat. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Yanis. Thank you very much also, Samuel. Do not hesitate if you have any other question to raise them directly into the chat. We will address them. And of course, I repeat it again, the recording of this session will be sent to you at the end. in the coming days, also with the associated presentation. But of course, if you have any other question or if you want to request a dedicated demo session, you can write directly to this email address. I will write it down into the chat. And we could plan a dedicated session for you.
Samuel, the question is it possible to link the software with other softwares? For example, architecture, Excel?
Yes, so the philosophy in Fence to do that is to provide API that are documented with Swagger. So there is exactly API connection. That's what we develop. So many of Fence already have connection for assets, vulnerability, and so on. Risk management, risk action plan workflow like ServiceNow, Jira, and so on. But yes, we can do that, and we would explain what API we have. And yes, for the rail application, railway scenario, we developed a specific methodology for rail in collaboration with Alstom, so we can do rail scenarios as well. Yes, the functionality, all functionality is included in the licenses.
And we also sell consultancy services in order to perform the security risk assessment on behalf of you using Fence.
LPM, we have LPM by default in Fence as a security catalog, so we have this one. For the railway, it is the 62443 and the TS 50701. Yes, as well, the reference framework, also the mapping. We can give some mapping between PartIS and ISO, some mapping between NIS2 and ISO as well.
And the famous subject between NIS2, PartIS, and ISO.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sasha. And if you have additional question, you will find on the last slide that we will share to you our emails. So don't hesitate to contact us directly.
Yes, Samuel, you can share maybe the last slide we have prepared just to let everyone see our email addresses. Great. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for again for your participation and for your questions. I hope we all have replied to all your questions, and do not hesitate if you want to learn more about PartIS or Fence solution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.